And that seemed pretty effortless, or seamless is the word I'm looking for. We are kicking off a little late today, and I expect we may be interrupted today in some capacity. It's just an interesting week. I'm rolling with the punches. On this one. We have a plumbing concern in the bathroom that's directly through that wall right there. So the property manager and the plumber are coming over. So it's what has occupied me the last few minutes. But I'm here. You guys will be here shortly, I expect. And we'll get things kicked off here. Let me cue up our video while I'm waiting for folks to show up. I think that's probably the best use of my time. That's probably the best use of my time, I think. Let's see, how did I get there? So, there was that one that we wanted to watch that the volume was messed up on. And I maybe have, I don't know, figured out a solution for that, but it won't. I'm going to basically rip the video, increase the volume on it, and then take it from there. That's the plan. Now, I think, since Colin Stokes, right? Yeah, he has another talk here. Same dude. And let's see if the volume's better on it. Oh, yeah, volume's seeming much better on this one. So I don't know if it's the same dude giving the same talk, but it's the same dude. Oh, man, I got people to shout out here. Let's see who. Let's shout out to Sabrina DeVille. Let's shout out to Maurice Burton. Let's shout out to David Chen. The Pirate Jenny. Awesome. Thanks for following on Twitch. And Gisa Outfit. Thank you for the follow. And cool, we got someone live in the mix right now. We got a few people. Academy Impossible, Algonquians, another TV viewer, Dyslectics. Awesome. What's up? Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Yeah, so we tried to watch that video yesterday. Misery Pimp, welcome and good morning. Good afternoon to those of you for whom it's afternoon, of course. Good evening for those for whom it is evening. We tried to watch yesterday. The audio was fucked up. So it was just too quiet. This is the same dude delivering what appears to be a different talk. So I don't know. We'll try it on a similar subject, right? It's about white lies we tell our children, which seems parallel to yesterday. Oh, the Pirate Jenny is in the building. That's what's up. Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. We'll start with our first TED Talk, and then we'll spin off of there. Boom. Let's do this. We have like a star-studded cast today. Green room. I call this the green room. Not that anyone else is in the audience, but the fact you guys are all in the green room if you're in the audience, as far as I'm concerned. My broadcaster. Yoop. Bloop. You guys can see it. Here we go. White lies we tell our children. Colin Stokes. Oh, but I almost forgot what we learned yesterday, and that's why I did this. I gotta go to YouTube. I gotta play music underneath it. Drum and bass seems to be the best thing, or else YouTube will ban me and block me. But don't worry, I think we got it. Okay. It's gonna be... I'll have to play with the volume a little bit on the background music, but it's a necessary innovation. There we go. Let me turn down the music a little. Uh-oh. You guys have no YouTube audio? Because it's all going out the same out. Let me make sure. Oh, I know what's going on. I have it on my headphones. I get it, you guys. I get it. Sorry you got this. There we go. Now it'll be better. Apologies. I had it on my headphones. Okay, we're back to it. So there's drum and bass.
Where present.
Bring the TED Talk back. Sorry, it's playing Tim's.
My wife and I had the talk with our daughter this year. No, not.
Okay,
not
we
the
got
one
it
about
now.
the penis and the vagina. No, the one about who puts the presents under the tree. Now, her little brother is still a believer, so. I mean, he's pretty confident that reindeer can't fly, but he just figures that Santa has another way of getting around to all those houses. I mean, there's a Google tracker that shows where Santa is every hour of the night. So I think we're good. But his big sister is 9, and this year the jig was up. Yeah, the wrapping paper was a little too similar to the gifts that came from family members. There was some handwriting on one of the boxes that was a little too familiar. There may have been a price tag on something. So, she figured it out and she called us out. And it was really tough for her. She loved believing in magic. Living in a world where presents came from totally unexplainable places. It's awesome. Finding out that the things that you wanted arrived because your parents paid for them with money, what a letdown. And it made me wonder, why are we working so hard to cultivate an illusion? Aren't we just digging a bigger and bigger hole for ourselves for when our kids discover the tricks? Isn't it magic enough that we buy you all this stuff? And I mean, there's a lot of magic going around. I mean, if you look at TV and commercials and movies and like Pinterest, American parents are single-handedly expected to orchestrate the magic of childhood. From October to December, there's like 3 epic theatrical events called Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, Hanukkah, American Present Giving Day, which are our children's permanent childhood memories. You throw in Easter and birthday parties and the Tooth Fairy, and we are producing more amazing shows than Shonda Rhimes. It's exhausting. Now, I know what you're thinking, or at least some of you are. First world problems. Yeah, the fact that this is the hardest parenting moment that I've had this year tells you something important about me. Actually, it may be the most important thing about me. I have so much privilege that it's ridiculous. My life is so free from obstacles that it's implausible. But here's something weird. I didn't know I'm privileged until embarrassingly late in my life. It's been a disillusionment, but a slow motion one. In fact, I feel a little bit like my daughter. In a way, we've both just learned that magic isn't real. And like her, I'm wondering why so many people have been lying to me about it, making me feel that the gifts that I have just appeared when actually they were bought and paid for. I would like to know why we are working so hard to cultivate an illusion. Like many Americans, I spent most of my life in homogenous places, racially and economically. In my case, white suburb in San Antonio, an Ivy League school. I worked in the arts in New York and nonprofits in Boston. And I have been oblivious to the history of those places and the institutions where I've worked. The choices that people before me have made about what resources to keep and where to deny those resources were not taught or talked about. Anyway, I missed them. I wanted to believe in the magic. This past year or so, the difference between my privileged family and millions of others in my country has been harder to miss. Take the talk, for instance. Nope, still not the one about the penis and the vagina. Now, this is the one that I've read so much about and that many of you have lived. And that's the one that parents of black children have with their kids, especially boys, when they're my kids' age, telling them how to dress, how to behave outside at night, what to do when you see a police car or a person in uniform to avoid serious life-altering trouble. I do not have to tell my children anything about how to interact with the police. Honestly, they can pretty much do whatever they want. Play with toy guns, wear hoodies, play loud music from the car, forget to signal a turn, and they'll be ignored or given a warning. But each of these behaviors has led to death when a person with dark skin does them. What I'm learning is that that is just the most visible injustice. The fact is that in my country, the distribution of wealth, income, educational attainment, health, imprisonment, representation in entertainment, and business leadership overwhelmingly favor white people, including me. This is really hard for me to get my brain around. I feel like my daughter. I can't believe in magic reindeer anymore. That there's no egalitarian fairy. That means that the privilege that I have didn't come to me because I was a good boy. It came to me because I inherited it from my family along with my skin color. I am really tempted to keep the myth alive, and there are plenty of people who are willing to sell it to me. My favorite Hollywood movies just keep on telling me the same story. The forces of good will conquer the forces of evil, and by forces of good, I mean the white American man and his devoted multicultural sidekicks. And by forces of evil, I mean faceless, disposable clones. And my children are susceptible to the same propaganda. They're soaking it up. My son told me he had a new Chinese classmate, and I asked him if the boy talked with a Chinese accent. He said, no, a normal one. I mean, he's a 6-year-old boy, so empathy is kind of a long shot. But, you know, I can't help but notice that there's heavy marketing coming at him from dozens of toy and game franchises, all telling the story of a tribe with one color scheme trying to defeat the tribe with another color scheme, led, of course, by a light-skinned male hero chosen by destiny. I mean, he's being told he's the center of the universe. It's no wonder that he thinks a fairy comes to his room to buy his teeth. But it's not just commercial interests that are promoting this magical thinking. My kids are being taught the same stories that I grew up learning about Columbus and the Pilgrims and Thanksgiving, stories that have more than a few flying reindeer in them. And later, they're going to be taught that America's progress toward equality has been a gentle arc bending toward Obama. From the Civil War to civil rights, and now racism is over. This is a history and a culture that is written to make people like me feel good. And it works. And now my children are coming home from school, repeating this American monomyth back to me. Now, it's one thing to tell white lies about who is really eating the cookies that we leave by the fireplace. But I think it's my responsibility to raise 2 white children on the truth about privilege. They're going to inherit the same opportunities that I have. And they're going to be told every single day that they deserve them and that the world was made for them, while it is less so for their classmates who have darker skin. I don't know exactly how it's going to work. How am I supposed to do my parenting job of boosting my kids' self-esteem and confidence while at the same time cluing them into the invisible advantages that they can't help but receive? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with my own privilege. How am I supposed to explain it to a 5th grader? But that's what I have to do, I think. How can I let a culture beyond the white narrative into my home to make sure that it is part of my children's lives? What can I say in response to a book or a movie to remind them that we are not the whole universe? We're not even the center of it. After all, American history is full of brave heroes who shouted out the truth, the radicals and the prophets, the protesters and the movement builders. Maybe they point the way to a small revolutionary victory that white parents can strive for. Don't draw a curtain around your children to protect their privilege. Pull it back and let them see how much the world is depending on them to change it. Recently, I was driving my family through a part of Boston that we don't usually traffic, and from the back seat, I hear my daughter. "Why are there so many black people in this neighborhood?" I took a moment to think. Maybe this is the talk we should be preparing for. I don't know very much about it, honey, but I've been reading some things, I said, and I think that white people have not, still don't, want to live near black people or allow them to make very much money, so they only let them buy houses in certain parts of the city. And that was the end of the conversation. There's so much more to say, more bad news, and more white lies. But some stories do more harm than good. Try a little more truth-telling. We'll all grow up and be a little wiser for it. Thank you.
Okay, I've got to be honest, guys. I did not expect that talk to go that direction at all. I'm not disappointed with it. I'm not upset with it. But no, because the other guy's talk has a similar title. This one was called "White Lies We Tell Our Children." His other talk is "What to Do When You Learn That Everything Is a Lie." So I presumed he was treating the same subject, which is, I guess why he named it as such. Let me turn the music off. And that other talk has nothing to do with politics in any way, racial politics or otherwise. But it's more about how everything is a deception. And I guess I'll just talk on it. Might as well. It's something it's one of my favorite topics, that everything is a scam. Everything is flim flam. Everything is marketing. At least everything in our lifetimes. Maybe not always, in the history of everything, but in our lifetimes. Oh my goodness. There's, as he puts it in the talk, which again, the volume is too low. I'm going to try to rip the video and see what I can do about artificially increasing the volume. I don't know if that's going to be possible, because it's a good talk. But what he talks about is like every individual who he admired, every institution that he respected. Once he got close, he found that really it was mostly an image constructed to perpetuate self-interest. And especially now, it's so prevalent. And it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Because you guys know last week I was sharing that series, sort of the Kabbalistic conspiracy theories, right? So when we get down there, he talks about a lot. I've been watching it every day. And when we get down into it, he talks so much about the coming of the Messiah, what that time looks like, what that reckoning looks like, according to Kabbalistic understanding, right? The Zohar and such. And so much is focused on, as we say, even in the Christian King James Bible, the revelation, meaning things being revealed, the bullshit being shown for bullshit. Dan Chen, good morning and welcome. The truth being shown for truth. The glorified, and in particular in that series of talks, he's highlighting 5 types of sort of hidden evil that hide among the righteous. The children of Israel, at the time that they left Egypt, is where it came from, but the idea is that there's reincarnation, so you don't know who's in what nation anymore, because there's been dispersion because of all this stuff. But that said, these souls held on to the souls of the righteous, or these are things affecting the souls of the righteous, so to speak. And so there's 5 categories, and they're basically 5 big deceptions. The first is the rulers of the world who don't care about the people of the world. Big deception. I think we're seeing that. I think that's that people are starting to really come to terms on that. The second, I think they're in Hebrew. The second is adulterers. Basically, people who nourish and secretly participate in lewdness, what we'll call like sexual prurience, right? They're pervs, basically. People who are in every situation thinking primarily of sex, and that's leads to all kinds of variations of, usually not just vanilla missionary, right? And not sex with their partner. And it leads them to nourish a culture of sex and things like that, sexuality and sexualizing of everybody and everything. So that's the second. The third, let's see, Cain Rephaim. So the third are the Rephaim let go. So the third are the people who wear godliness as either godliness or kind of greatness, renown. People of renown, people who seek a big name, people who put their name on buildings is actually an example they specifically give, which is funny because I could think of some people who got some names on some buildings. People who seek a great name, and especially those who do it through the venue or the medium of a righteous institution. Again, in the Zohar, they're talking about people who establish an academy of learning or a what else? Or synagogue, or a place of worship, a house of worship, a holy institution, a temple, a church, or whatever. But they're doing it for their own name, their own glory. They're doing it to be put on a pedestal. That's the third category. The fourth category is the people who are alongside in accord with the righteous when it suits them, and kind of throw them under the bus or depart or fail to rise to defend the righteous when they're being persecuted. And you can even simplify it more as like, fair weather friend. They're there when when there's something in it for them, and they're not there when it's hard times. But particularly in the context of faith and belief. And the fifth category becomes people who wear their pride, their accomplishments, their deeds, their learning like a necklace. They say like a medallion, like a medal, like a badge, because all these people are covering something. Every one of those categories, everybody's lying in a big way. Their basic presentation of themselves, of their motives, of their behaviors is fraudulent, and so a revelation is the revelation of those things. And so thinking about all those things, thinking about a revelation of things, I've been thinking a lot about the basic untruths of the world, the basic untruths of, we live very much in this system that's rather well comprehensively presented to us as figured out. This is how things work. First of all, there's a basic assumption that things work, which I think many of us might disagree with, that things are working. So if things don't work, then you could say this is not how things function. This is how things dysfunction. If this is how things dysfunction, who gives a shit? Maybe we change it. There is something to the fact that each of us is born into a reality that, well, just like the myth of Santa Claus, like where he started in that story, each of us is born into reality that, on some level or another, we're fed deception. We're either fed media or even fairy tales or whatever that don't reflect reality. We're fed. I remember the first time when I was a kid. It was my first day of school ever, I think, or my first day of like elementary school, bigger school, not like preschool. And the first time a grown-up was mean to me. Or was not anything but like, oh, sweetie, no, let me help you. I didn't know where I went for my bus. And I just walked up to a grown-up. You know, if you need help, you walked up to a grown-up. I walked up to a grown-up. I said, can you help me find my bus? And they were like, no, I'm standing here directing everything. And I was like, what the fuck is this? They're not allowed to act like that. It was revelatory to me in a moment. And if I had experienced something more sincere like that in life, it wouldn't have been so shocking. I think those shocking moments we internalize because they mark points where our perception of reality is challenged and often changed. They mark points where that boundary of cognitive dissonance is pressed against, right? And ruptured in most cases. And that's interesting. That's an interesting, significant point in life. Because every time we do that, we break out of reality is fundamentally cyclical unless we have a rupture. And then we can make it spiral or screw-like, which is kind of the goal, right? Hopefully. So those experiences of rupture, I don't know, they're in some way, well, it's like when you learn history, right? At least if you've learned it in the United States public school system, you'll learn that Columbus discovered America in 1492, and that's it. Not only will you not learn about, Amerigo Vespucci or Leif Erikson, any of that, but you won't learn about the fact that, no, actually, people have been inhabiting the Americas since they walked over here, and they inhabited all up and down the Americas, and they had civilizations, and, Columbus just showed up at some point, right? That you don't get that part of history in elementary school. So you learn something, and then you kind of learn, I want to say complicating, almost, details to the point where they've fundamentally changed or undermined the meaning of what you've learned in some way. It's an interesting way we do education here. And then the more educated you are, right, the more you're buy into this more, where you're okay, well, I'm going to go on from high school to college, I'm going to go on from college to graduate school, go get my PhD. Then you start actually looking at only then do you start looking at the multiple different angles and the different documents and narratives of history and be like, oh wow, everything I learned till now is bullshit, and here's my paper on why. And by the way, the only people who are going to read that paper are other PhD candidates, and then people like Moses who fucking subscribe to these things and read them. So it's a challenging way to go about life, living in deception. And what do I mean by this? Well, in an interesting contrast to the post I made yesterday, which was about, our talk, the TED Talk we watched yesterday, pardon me, which is talking about not say I'm going to, but say I am, right? I'm going to quit smoking, I'm a non-smoke, or I don't smoke, I quit smoking, whatever the hell, whatever. That's that. I posted today on Instagram in an interesting contrast, something about E-Prime. And I actually want to see if I can find a video about it, because I can explain it, but having someone explain it who, is skillful, yeah. Here we go. I would love to see Robert Anton Wilson talking about it, because he's the man, and I like any chance to play him. Yes, how long is this? 6 minutes, 42 seconds? Let's try it. Let's try it. Bear with me, gang. And I don't have to play music over old REW clips. Or beneath, not over, underneath. Ready?
Infants are born without any culture.
Okay, that's hard to understand, I'll be honest. He said infants are born without any culture, but that's hard to understand.
Every infant, as Bucky Fuller once said, is...
Yeah, no, that's a little too hard to understand. Let's see. All right, we'll just do this.
I wanted to talk today a little bit about the effects of precise
Let's do
language
this. Yeah,
on
I feel good about this one. Let's just give a shout out over here to Foolish Fish. Let's throw him a sub. We gave him a thumbs up. By the way, I recommend this book, Quantum Psychology, significantly. Maybe we'll do a book group on it because, yeah, it's important magically. It's important in all senses. Yeah. Okay. Without further ado, Foolish Fish's take on language affects reality.
experience of reality. I read Quantum Psychology by Robert Anton Wilson about 15 years ago. Let me show you some of the recommendations right there. There's one by Philip K. Dick. I don't know if that's a good enough recommendation for you. Wilson managed to reverse every mental polarity in me, as if I'd been pulled through infinity. I was astonished and delighted. That seems like quite a good recommendation to me. I read it and it had a deep effect on my life. Let me first of all say that I grew up as a bilingual kid. My mother's English, my father's French, and when I was at home, I would talk with my brother and sister in a kind of mishmash of English and French, and with my parents sitting at the table, I would turn my head to one side of the table, and by the end of that, I would. So I'd be speaking in English to my mother, and then I'd finish the sentence maybe on the other side of the table in French as I concluded my thought towards my father. But then when I left home and was confronted with the realities of the real world, I realized that actually having these two languages with which to think gave me a tremendous agility of thought. So if I came...
All right, I didn't realize that this was like a highly unscripted thing. So I'll jump into this and talk about it. We've watched things about it. We have that is that language constructs reality, right? We've talked about language constructing reality. Let's see if there's like an easy E prime thing. In any case, so language constructs reality, and an example, if we want to talk about personal experience and stuff like that, that from my own life that I think is going to be similar to what he's saying with English and French, is learning English and Hebrew simultaneously. In Hebrew, everything has, like Spanish actually, if you speak Spanish, so like French, a tense, meaning is it in the past, present, or future, and a gender. And then in English, we got imperfect tenses and no gender. So if you talk to a Spanish speaker or a Hebrew speaker, often even when they speak English, if I'm in a ritual space, for example, everything is gendered. Everything is a he or a she. Nothing's an it, because everything's alive, so everything is gendered. Everything's he or she. And that constructs a whole reality based on that. If you don't have it in English, it's a very big stretch. Is a keyboard he or she? It's a she, by the way. Keyboard has to be a she. So, but everything's he or she. So when you have it in that sense, then combining a he and a she obviously makes a thing. That's a basic idea, right? So semantically, just in using words, describing anything, right? In Hebrew, if I want to say, I can't say, it is a nice couch. I have to say she is a nice couch. Same as in Spanish, right? You have to use a gendered word. And so that creates a whole mental model that's just around gender. Then we go into time, right? We don't have a perfect future tense in English. We say I will, present tense, right? If we say I ran for president, I run for president, there's no like I rin for president, like future. It's I will run. So it's will, present tense. Will means something in English. It means I'm putting my will, I'm willing the future to be with the present. But in Hebrew or in Spanish, there's a conjugated perfect future tense. What does that mean? I don't know how to say I will run for president in Hebrew, but like, ani yashavti, I sat. Ani yoshev, I sit. Ani shuv. I don't know how to conjugate it, but I will sit. Same with Latin, by the way. English just doesn't have it for us. So that constructs how we think about reality, how we think about time, for many reasons, right? Whether we see the future in English mind, we see the future as a continuity of the present, a modified form of the present. In the Spanish mind, Hebrew mind, Latin mind, whatever, then we see the future as another state not yet arrived at. Just as the past is another state that we have arrived from and we're no longer directly accessing. So it's interesting how language constructs reality. So then we get into this idea of E prime. And I realize it's a bit of a ramble, but I want to give context for those who may be unfamiliar with some of the ideas. Then we get into this idea of E prime. So E prime is a modified version of English intended to enable us to speak English more precisely and accurately. It doesn't approach modifying the language by adding gender or by adding tense. Instead, it modifies the language by removing objectivity. Right? So it's not adding anything, or I should say, I don't see it as adding anything. I see it as simplifying and clarifying. What the fuck am I talking about? It removes all versions of the form to be, the verb to be. So, am, is, are, were, of course, will be, everything was, all those verbs are removed from the language. So because they're ambiguous, there's a whole rationale to it, and this all comes from the field of general semantics. If you're interested in that, you can look more into it. But so this all comes from the idea that, and if you don't see the immediate relevance in this stuff, between this stuff and magic, let me know, because it's extremely, extremely immediately relevant. This is, how words construct reality. This is very essential. In any case, when we remove all those definite verbs, then we get into something where we're never say, like the example I gave is, you wouldn't say the sky is blue. You would say the sky looks blue to me. So here's something interesting, because first of all, the pressure of being right is off, because I can't be wrong. I'm not reporting anything in terms of you. The sky could look purple to you. I'm not saying anything to do with what the sky looks like to you, or her, or him, or them. I'm saying the sky looks blue to me. Nor can you dispute that. You can't say, sky doesn't look blue to me. No one said the sky looks blue to you. The sky said the sky looks blue to me. And you can't say, well, the sky doesn't look blue to you. The fuck do you know? I feel cold. It's cold in here is not E prime. That's Old English. Hey, amigo, welcome. What if I say, I feel cold? You can't say, no, you don't. You could say, I feel hot. That's fine. I feel cold. I feel hot. You feel hot. Then we start to get to the idea, as we practice this together, that multiple simultaneous realities, intersecting realities, can exist. Because there's a reality for you where the sky is, we'll say, oh no, I think the sky looks like azure, and I feel hot. But for me, the sky looks blue, and I feel cold. Azure and blue kind of mean the same thing, but whatever. Or even better, let's say you're in what time is it? Let's say you're in Hawaii. You're watching the sunrise. You say, no, the sky is pink, and I feel cold. And I say the sky's blue, and I feel hot. Which one's true? If we say the sky looks blue to me and the sky looks pink to me, because the sky is neither, and it's neither hot nor cold, right? All those things are subjective, and that goes on to everything. everything in life. This music is loud. This music seems loud to me. Is the music objectively loud? It depends. Definitely not to a dude who's using a jackhammer in the street. What music? Right? Music's not objectively loud. There is no objective is. Then we get into the idea of like where this ties back into the idea of revelation, the idea of a world of falsehoods. How big's the moon? How far is the moon from the earth? Someone will tell you they know these things. I certainly don't know, but someone will tell you they know these things. But how do they know? Have they measured it? Have they taken a string and wrapped it around the moon and then measured that string? No. They read it in a fact book somewhere. Someone maybe at some point performed a calculation, and that's as close as we can get, and it's not totally accurate. How big is the coast of England? Here's one for you. How big is the coast of England? You'd think you can measure the coast of England, right? Here's a funny thing. I'm going to pull this up. This is one of my favorite math anomalies that just breaks logic. It's called Laplace's demon. I probably spelled it wrong. Nope. Coast of England math problem. The coastline paradox. Let's see. Coastline paradox. We're going to do 6 minutes on this. Fuck. Do the short 2 minutes, 16 seconds. No, that'll be 72 million views. I trust this. I don't know why.
This video.
So this is really cool because it just shows, it finally undermines even mathematical objectivity. And from this, we'll go into meditation and prayer. Here we are. The coastline paradox.
Was made possible by Brilliant.org. The first 755 people to sign up with Brilliant will get 20% off their premium subscription. So here's the problem that this video is going to be talking about. How long is the coast of the United States? If you look at any map and see America, you might think that it's easy. Just measure the outline of the country and you have your answer. Several people and organizations have already tried this though, like the Congressional Research Institute that calculated it to be 12,383 miles, a second study from them that changed it to 29,093 miles. The CIA puts it at 19,924 miles, and a study from NOAA calculated the shoreline to be 95,471 miles.
How about that shit, though? Right there. I'm going to pause the video because you need... The CIA, these various government institutes can't even agree on how big America is, how big the shoreline is. Wrap your brain around that. This is not some flat earth thing. This is has to do with how objective measurement is, and they'll explain why. Because measurement is always relative to scale. Spoiler alert.
You may have noticed that all of these numbers are different, which is weird because they're all just measuring the same coastline. So what's going on? Let's move over to a smaller country like the United Kingdom and measure the coastline of Great Britain to get a clearer picture. Obviously, the coast of Britain isn't straight. Every time you look closer at a line that looks straight, you'll see more curves and bends. So how do you measure the length of the coast if every time you look more closely, it never actually becomes straight? You end up using the smallest measurement unit that's feasible. So if you were to measure the British coast using lengths of 100 kilometers, you'd end up using 28 of them and get an answer of 2,800 kilometers. But if you shortened your measuring units down to 50 kilometers, you'd end up using 68 of them and get an answer of 3,400 kilometers, which is 600 kilometers longer than your first measurement was. This is called the coastline paradox, and anybody's answer to how long a coastline is depends on what size of measurement they're using. First observed by a guy named Lewis Fry Richardson back in 1951 as a way to explain how Portugal and Spain had come up with totally different answers to their mutual border length. The coastline paradox has been annoying cartographers ever since. Basically, the smaller the unit of measurement you use to measure a coastline, the longer your answer will become. You could theoretically go all the way down to the molecular level for your measurement unit, but if you do that, the length of the coast seems to approach infinity. It doesn't seem to make any sense that you could have a defined space with a finite area like Great Britain, be surrounded by an infinitely long perimeter. But there's a similar concept that can be found in mathematics called fractals. A coach snowflake is probably the easiest way to visualize this concept. So imagine a triangle with equal sides of 1. Put another triangle on each side with equal lengths of 1/3. You can keep repeating this process forever, and if you zoom in on the snowflake, it essentially goes on forever. When you zoom back out to the original starting point, you're left with a shape that has a finite area, but an infinitely long perimeter. A lot of coastlines around the world have similar properties to this, so you can keep zooming in and zooming in on the coast of Britain, and the coastline will continue to look roughly the same, no matter how far down the rabbit hole you go. As mentioned previously, you'll eventually hit the molecular level if you zoom in far enough, and you'll be measuring a beach by counting atoms. If you did this forever, you'd find the coast of Britain to probably be millions of kilometers in length, which just isn't very practical or easy to understand. There's also the minor problem that coastlines tend to change all the time with erosion. Every time a wave crashes on a beach, its shape is changed by a little, and that is really hard to accurately pin down. On top of this, sea levels are rising around the world, which can drastically alter the way a coastline looks.
We don't need to go into coastlines in specific. If you've seen that much, you basically got the essence of this, right? You can't even objectively measure a coastline or your body or anything else. You can't objectively measure something. There's no objective unit of measurement. Even measurement is subjective. This makes a lot of things really tricky. Absolute objective reality starts to become hard to talk about. So you can only say the coastline seems X length to me because you're measuring in your units or what have you. The implications of subjective mathematics, I think, can't be overstressed, right? You legitimately don't know. We do not know. Nobody knows how big anything is. And everything we know to the contrary is a lie that we've bought into and that we perpetuate. That's nuts to me. I hope that's nuts to you. Is that nuts to you guys? Let me know in the chat. On that note, let us prepare to dive into today's meditation, I think that's what we'll do. Do you guys not think that's nuts? I think that's completely nuts. That no measurement is objective. No definition is fixed. No... it boggles the mind to consider that if you can't measure anything, then everything that comes from measurement is not exact. It's not absolute, is perhaps a better word, if I want to be more exact about it. Right? If the coastline can't be measured, then anything irregular can't be measured, which is anything organic. Right? A tree can't be measured. How big is a tree? Depends how close you're zooming in to measure it. That's crazy to me. And therefore, how big are we? What is space? Magnets, how do they work? No. It starts to undermine some basic assumptions. And the mind can start to reel because one of the ways that the brain physically works, right, neurocognitively works, is to rely on pattern sensing and simplification. But when we start to desimplify and force it to look objectively, it can be like vertigo. It can be extremely disorienting. Nonetheless, if we want to be able to really see clearly and affect true reality, it's absolutely necessary to be engaged with true reality, in which size is a really fucking uncertain thing. It's relative. Everything. Beginning with size, because if space is relative, time is relative. And if time is relative, holy shit, now things are weird. If time and space are both relative to the unit of measurement, to the unit of perception, that's fucking real weird. How long is life? How is anything? All the basic questions and assumptions that we're working with become very hard to say that we know anything for certain. I think that's as good a place as any to jump into meditation. Yeah, let's see here. Cool, gang. Well, my chat's showing me my chat list is showing me a whole bunch of different numbers than my viewer list. So whoever is tuned in, thanks for hanging this long. Let me get the binaural beats going. Data waves. Binaural beats. Apple meditation, I think. Yes. Yes. We're doing Apple all week. We'll be here all week, folks. We're getting closer to that 1 hour mark that we're shooting for. Which, that will be the goal. To not keep you guys all day. Just do the 1 hour. Okay, cool. Let me pull up Temple Cam for meditation. Doop. Boop. Cool. I'll spin up the binaural beats. Apple meditation. From what I can tell, there are no newcomers among us. Everybody here should know exactly what Apple meditation is when I say Apple meditation. And that said, I can't really tell who's here. So, you know. Hopefully it's not an empty room. But if it is, that's okay. 10 minutes. Binaural beat is a go. I'll check you guys in 10. That's 10 minutes, gang. Thanks for binaural beating with me. Ooh, I'm still buzzing off of that one. That was a good sesh for me. Let's see who hung for that one. I have no idea who's here and who's not. It's not giving me any refreshed statistics. Well, thanks for hanging if you hung. NyQuil. Awesome. Thanks for popping in, bro. It's good to see you, man. My love, my best to your mom, if you're still at her crib. With that said, now's the time we wrap it up. We got it down to an hour 15 today. I think we're going to have it down to an hour tomorrow. It's getting tighter and tighter. And, the plumber didn't interrupt us, so I didn't have to go through all that trouble. In any case, let's do this. Make yourself big. Be mindful of how your hands and fingers are positioned. Open them to receive and send them back on themselves to collect and to sense, we'll say. Deep breath into the middle of yourself and exhale. Another deep breath. And exhale. I don't even want to go into the infinite size of your lungs on the atomic level right now. But suffice it to say, let's talk about their function. The function of the entire body. As a magnificent, incredibly complex and unknowably magnificent mechanism that is presented to us, given to us through such a simple basic filter that we can interact with it even with the soul of a child, even from the time that we have no understanding. We receive input, we receive information, we receive nourishment, we receive life from the whole world around us constantly, for free, by no merit of our own, as a gift. Let us receive these gifts gratefully. Let us open our hearts to them. Let us open our minds to them. Let us acknowledge these gifts for everything that they are. And with those gifts in us, let us feel empowered by them. Let us know that by the life coursing through our veins and the breath in our lungs, by our very experience of reality, we are charged with interaction. We are obligated to receive and to give, just as a tree is respirating, inhaling all the carbon dioxide and exhaling all the oxygen, and just as we are inhaling all that oxygen and exhaling all the carbon dioxide, that exchange is going on in every dimension, on every level, between all things, all creations of God and creations of man. Let us be aware and present in that awareness. Let us gratefully receive our place in the order. Let us perpetuate ourselves. Let us, in receiving and in delivering, move without friction. Let us be a part that functions correctly, that drives the next part and receives the energy of the part that pushes us without damaging it through resistance. And in receiving all this, let us perpetuate a fully working mechanism of which we are part, a harmonious mechanism, perpetuating the unfolding of the universe according to the first fiat of the first cause, the original creator. Let us receive our place, let us receive our charge, let us receive our blessing, let us acknowledge our role in the perpetuation of God's creation, and let us all say, Amen. Well, everybody, it is 11:16. We're going to wrap it for today. I will think of you all day and see you all tomorrow. As always, I thank you. I bless you. I love you for committing to yourself, for committing to your practice.